Hey guys, it's Libby and welcome to my April wrap-up, which will also include the end of the month of March. It is not currently hailing in the city of Amsterdam. We'll see how long that holds out. In this month and a bit, I read 3 novels, 2 manga volumes, and 1 work of humorous nonfiction. Humorous memoir? But before we get into the books, I actually have an unrelated recommendation that I would like to make to you guys that it wasn't long enough to deserve its own video, but I really want to tell you guys about a new YouTube channel that I have been enjoying. It is called, oh crap, it's either called Dr. Octavia Cox or just Octavia Cox. I will definitely leave a link below. Dr. Cox is an English literature professor. She does a lot of videos about Jane Austen, but she also covers other time periods. There's some Bloomsbury group. There's a decent amount of 18th century novels. So if you are interested in like academic discussions of themes or particular passages in those types of books, I would definitely recommend checking her out, and I will leave a link to a couple of videos that I especially enjoyed. Let's start with the 2 of those novels. I read The Bear and the Nightingale and The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. I don't think they're full booktube darlings. I read a booktube darling later in April. But these are quite popular on booktube. They are sort of Slavic. I don't think they're an extremely loose retelling of an actual Slavic folklore. I would say they're more using Slavic folklore characters. And I thought that this series was too mediocre for words. It's been less than a month since I finished them, and I can't really remember what they're about. I wonder if I can remember the protagonist's name. I think it's Vasya, but that also might be a secondary character. Yeah, so this is set in a mostly historically accurate world to Appanage Rus, so Russia under the Mongols. And we have a couple sort of subplot systems that are about the political situation of Russia, but sort of the marquee plot is a conflict between like pagan-y, folkloric, rural Russian beliefs and Christianity. Our main character, who I'm just gonna call Vasya, even though I'm only about 85% sure that that's her name, it starts at her birth, or even before her birth, but we pretty quickly get to like her childhood and teenage years. She is the daughter of a rural landowner who has many children. She's got, I don't know, 6 or 7 siblings. There are various fortuitous signs around her birth, at which her mother also dies. Her father, a couple years later, goes and marries another woman from the city who is extremely religious, and sort of brings actual Orthodox Christianity to Vasya's little home. Actually, it's a big home. One thing that I thought was very interesting is that, and I assume this is based on history, their house has like a summer half and a winter half, just completely different structure, like different location of the stove. I assume different like levels of insulation in the walls, just because you get such extreme weather in the part of Russia that she's in, that they split the house in half and live in one half in the summer and one half in the winter. Although most people can't see them, Vasya is able to see domovoi, which are like Russian house spirits. So there's like the spirit of the kitchen, the spirit of the stables, and other sort of magical beings like a rusalka, like a mermaid. And so she's able to see them and talk to them, and some people kind of understand, like they know that the domovoi are real even though they can't see them, and they kind of encourage her. Some people are completely oblivious, but there is one other character who can see the domovoi, which is her new stepmother, and her stepmother is terrified of them, and she thinks like they're the devil and they're trying to kill everybody. People think she's mad because she sees things that other people can't see, and she's really scared about this. So we have our classic evil stepmother situation. At least for the first volume, I found the pacing quite weird. The first 3/4, maybe even 7/8 of the book is extremely slow. I think we don't hit our first like fantasy element until halfway through. And it just sort of seems like a sort of generational saga almost, because we hear a lot about the family as a whole, Vasi's siblings and eventually like nieces and nephews. It's just about these like upper class rural Russians in the like late Middle Ages. And I was like, okay, this isn't really what I expected, but like it's kind of pleasant and enjoyable. But then the end totally changes speed. We have multiple action scenes, tensions are extremely high, everybody's seeing magic, yelling about magic. And I don't really have a lot that is bad to say about these books. I just also don't have a lot to say that is good, and so I just don't really know why they exist. I am currently not planning to read the third book in this trilogy. However, if you guys think like the problems I've expressed here are addressed in that, and that it's like a really excellent finisher, I would consider it. But yeah, I gave these both like 3 stars. I don't know. I feel like 3 stars, you have to 2.75. I wrote down 3 on Goodreads, but they're just so blah. Okay, let's move on to another series, guys. Things are not about to get better. So I read volumes 4 and 5 of Death Note. 4 is Love, 5 is Whiteout. Yeah, Death Note's gonna get its own video, you know, guys? Death Note's gonna get its own video. And it may surprise you to hear, if you've been following my other Death Note reviews, that I gave volume 4 a 2, and I deigned to rate, or no, I did not deign. I did not deign to rate volume 5. I just could not even be bothered, which in some ways is worse than a 1 star. Death Note video forthcoming. Now, fortunately, not everything I read this month was bad. We did get a decent book in there, which is Solutions and Other Problems by Allie Brosh. I've really been looking forward to this book for a long time. I enjoyed Allie Brosh's first book, Hyperbole and a Half. These are both illustrated by Allie, and they are mainly memoirs with some more sort of like memoir scenes, you might say. It's not one through narrative, with occasional more general philosophizing from Allie's life. This book was delayed, unfortunately. Allie herself got sick for quite a while. Her sister died when her car was struck by a train. Allie doesn't explain whether this is suicide or an accident, but either way, terrible. And Allie also went through a divorce. So she's had like a super funny past 4 years to write about. So like a number of these stories are just like pure funny. But some of them are definitely like darker. So if you like want a pure pick-me-up, this is not the book. But I still really enjoyed this, and I actually enjoyed this more than Hyperbole and a Half. I felt that the chapters of Hyperbole and a Half, I really liked her memoir scenes, but then her more like general explorations of topics I thought were mostly misses. Here I think like pretty much every chapter was a hit. I gave Solutions and Other Problems 4 stars. And then finally, here's that real booktube darling I read. I finished out the month with The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book was pretty fun. Our main character is a man named Linus, who is in his 40s. He works a pretty soul-sucking, bureaucratic job for the government. And he sort of evaluates orphanages to make sure that they are like up to code, and he gets sent on an assignment to go to the House in the Cerulean Sea, which is an orphanage. The twist is the world. So one, there be magic. This orphanage is specifically for magical children. So they have like a gnome, a sprite, the Antichrist, usual stuff. And the world that this book is set in is very recognizable in some ways, but completely foreign in others. So things like ancient Greece, Buddy Holly still exist, which would lead you to think that like we're in the modern world, but like one, magic children, and also magical adults. Two, the like zany bureaucracy of the government, which my parents worked in the government. It's not that bad. And this gave it overall a kind of middle grade feel. So our main character is an adult, but most of our side characters are children and early teenagers. And then like you can definitely imagine this sort of evil bureaucracy of the government, which is, at least his department, Linus's department, is headed by extremely upper management. You can definitely imagine that being it's like the adult version of a boarding school. I could certainly imagine reading a middle grade novel about like a horrible boarding school. And I feel like this is sort of an extension of the trend of middle grade novels that are also being pitched at adults. I have heard some people say that like the intention of this book was to sort of defy age categorization, so it could be of interest to anybody. I would actually say I would not categorize this as a middle grade book. I would say this is a book for adults and young adults who enjoy middle grade, because there are a couple of references to pedophilia. There aren't any like instances of child molestation, but on more than one occasion, one adult character says to another, like, you understand how this could be construed as suspicious, or even in one case, like someone threatening to reveal someone as a pedophile, even though that person is not, which didn't sit great with me. I honestly feel like if the sort of 6 sentences related to that had been removed, that this really would be like accessible to all ages. And they were honestly really unnecessary, so I don't know why we put that in. So looking at like specifically the plot and the characters as opposed to this fantastical world, I would say this is very cute but conventional. It's kind of a Bildungsroman for an adult, which was interesting. There was also a bit of romance, which honestly at the beginning I thought was handled kind of immaturely. Linus has a crush on Arthur Parnassus, the proprietor, the dad figure of the orphanage, and there's a lot of like, Linus noticed that his heart beat faster whenever Arthur was in the room, but couldn't understand why. And I'm like, come on. If this was a 13-year-old, I might buy it, but it's a 43-year-old, so I don't. Overall, I give House on the Cerulean Sea a 3.5 stars, with the note that like it's really not trying to be anything great, and so even though it is a 3.5, it is a 3.5 that I would recommend to other people. And that was my past month and a bit of reading. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I will see you guys to talk about Death Note soon.